Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a like up. William Shatner originated Captain James T. Kirk in Star Trek. The original series and recent events in Star Trek mean Shatner will always hold one record as Kirk. Shatner portrayed Kirk in 3 seasons of the 1960s Star Trek, voiced Kirk in Star Trek, the animated series, and starred in 7 Star Trek movies. J.J. Abrams' 2009 Star Trek movie reboot proved doubters wrong by recasting Captain Kirk with Chris Pine. Playing Kirk at 25 in an alternate timeline, Pine evoked Shatner while adding a youthful dynamism to the captain of the Enterprise. Pine's Kirk headlined 2 more movies, Star Trek Into Darkness and Star Trek Beyond. Star Trek: Strange New Worlds cast Paul Wesley as Lieutenant James T. Kirk in 2022. Wesley's James is the younger version of William Shatner's Kirk in Star Trek's prime timeline. Wesley also portrayed alternate reality versions of Captain Kirk, but his version of Jim is in his late 20s and is first officer of the USS Farragut. Paramount Skydance announced a new Star Trek movie that will be a fresh start for the theatrical franchise, and canceled the hope for Star Trek IV that would have brought Chris Pine's Captain Kirk back to the Starship Enterprise. Meanwhile, Star Trek: Strange New Worlds will end with Season 5, which is now filming. The end of Chris Pine and Paul Wesley's runs as James T. Kirk means William Shatner will be the only Star Trek actor to portray Kirk in middle age and older. Kirk was in his mid-30s in Star Trek, the original series, and Jim famously turned 50 in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. Captain Kirk was in his 60s when he died in Star Trek Generations. Chris Pine's Captain Kirk turned 30 in Star Trek Beyond, which took place in 2263, 5 years after he became captain of the Enterprise in Star Trek 2009. In his final appearance, Pine's Kirk is about 2 to 3 years younger than William Shatner's captain was when Star Trek, the original series, began. Strange New Worlds Seasons 4 and 5 will span the remaining 4 years until Kirk becomes captain of the Enterprise in 2265. Neither Chris Pine nor Paul Wesley's Kirks will be seen past their 30s, unlike William Shatner's. One of the biggest disappointments of Star Trek IV's cancellation is that it means Chris Pine will not get to play Captain Kirk in his 40s. Logically, Star Trek IV would have reintroduced J.J. Abrams' USS Enterprise, cast a decade after Star Trek Beyond. Kirk and his crew's ages would have reflected the actors portraying them. In Star Trek Beyond, Captain Kirk was wiser and less tempestuous than he was in the prior 2 Star Trek movies J.J. Abrams directed. It was Pine's best performance as Captain Kirk and the closest in spirit to William Shatner's portrayal. Tragically, no Star Trek IV means Pine can't continue to evolve his Kirk's maturity. William Shatner's Captain Kirk, or Admiral Kirk, in the first 4 Star Trek movies grew more interesting as he aged. Kirk faced death for the first time, gained and lost his son, and learned to move past his hatred of the Klingons. Appropriately, Shatner's Kirk had the most complete life arc of any other Kirk portrayal. Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves hints at what Chris Pine's older Captain Kirk could have been like in Star Trek IV. Pine played Edgen Darvis, a thief and scoundrel who risks everything to be reunited with his daughter. Pine's performance as Edgen is the closest fans will now get to Chris's more adult Captain Kirk. After Star Trek: Strange New Worlds ends with Season 5, executive producers and co-showrunners Akiva Goldsman and Henry Alonso Myers hope to create a spin-off starring Paul Wesley. Their pitch, dubbed Star Trek Year 1, would be all new adventures depicting Kirk's first year as captain of the Enterprise. Even if Star Trek Year 1 happens, Paul Wesley won't get to play a more mature Captain Kirk. In Star Trek Year 1, Kirk would be about 33, leading up to the start of William Shatner's Captain Kirk in Star Trek, the original series. Like Chris Pine, Paul Wesley's run as James T. Kirk is limited to portraying the Starfleet legend in his late 20s and early 30s. What Chris Pine or Paul Wesley's versions of Captain Kirk in middle age would be like will remain one of Star Trek's what-if mysteries. Paul Wesley is 43 and plays James T. Kirk as 15 years younger in Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. Meanwhile, Chris Pine is 45 Sadly, both younger Kirk actors will be denied the chance William Shatner had after Star Trek, the original series, to play Captain Kirk at the same age they are now. Across nearly 6 decades of Star Trek history, countless actors have stepped into the captain's chair, but only one name carries the undeniable weight of legend: William Shatner. Bold, smiling, swagger-filled, rhetorically dramatic William Shatner will forever remain the face of Captain James Tiberius Kirk. And while the franchise continues to grow, twist, reinvent, and reimagine itself, there is one record Shatner holds that no one else will ever be able to touch. He is the longest-running, longest tenured, and most culturally defining Captain Kirk the Star Trek universe will ever know. Not because others haven't played the role, not because the franchise will stop expanding, but because time has already crowned him the unbeatable champion. Shatner didn't just play Kirk, he invented what it means to be a Starfleet captain. Every portrayal that followed has been measured against the bar he set in 1966, almost unintentionally. When he stepped onto the bridge of the Enterprise for the first time, he wasn't just embodying a fictional officer. He was building a blueprint for intergalactic leadership that would echo across generations of sci-fi storytelling. 3 years on television, 6 movies, guest appearances, voice roles, documentaries, conventions, decades of canon references, and close to 55 years in the public consciousness as Captain Kirk. No actor alive or yet to be cast can replicate that kind of legacy. Shatner's Kirk is not just a character. He's a cultural epic, a role that outgrew its origins. When Gene Roddenberry created Star Trek, he envisioned a utopian future bound together by science, diplomacy, and human curiosity. But it was William Shatner who gave the show its fire, its bravado, humor, warmth, and emotional unpredictability. Kirk wasn't written as a superhero. Shatner made him one through sheer personality. His version of Kirk was a commander who leapt before he looked, who loved fiercely, who negotiated passionately, and who delivered every line with a cadence that generations still imitate with affection. Other captains would appear: Picard, Sisko, Janeway, Archer, Pike, and a dozen alternate universe Kirks. But every one of them lived in the gravitational field Shatner established. They were all measured against him, whether audiences realized it or not. Even Chris Pine, the closest heir to the Kirk mantle, doesn't compete with Shatner. Pine's Kirk is brilliant, charismatic, modernized, and extremely popular, but he's also intentionally different. He's playing a variant, a remix, a reinterpretation, a what if. He's not there to dethrone the original, because the original is untouchable. No reboot or revival can surpass this record. You can recast Kirk, but you can't replicate Shatner's historical footprint. Even in alternate universes, Shatner's Kirk looms large. The Kelvin Timeline movies introduced Chris Pine as a younger, edgier, sleeker Kirk. Fans adore him, but even Pine himself acknowledges that he's walking in Shatner's shadow. Every alternate universe, every multiverse twist, every animated homage, be it on Lower Decks, Prodigy, or Strange New Worlds, points back to the original Kirk. Shatner's Kirk is the nucleus. The other Kirks? Electrons orbiting around him. And that's by design. The franchise knows that Shatner's Kirk is the anchor that keeps the mythology coherent. Remove him, and the universe drifts. These discussions are nostalgia. They're recognition of a character layered enough to remain relevant in every generation. Shatner's Kirk was written with a 1960s sensibility, but performed with such sincerity and charisma that he transcends his own era. No future actor, no matter how talented, can break the record of being the first and definitive interpretation of a character who sparked an entire universe of storytelling. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and stay with us.